Test, test. I need to do a quick sound check here. Fantastic. That's always the biggest hurdle. Happy spring, everybody. If you're in Minnesota, you probably already heard about the mid 70s that we're going to have today, which is unusual for this time of the year. So that's exciting and unusual, but it's welcome, especially since we got a nasty blizzard last week that dropped a lot of snow. And I posted a couple of videos. I had to knock about 3 to 4 foot drifts off of the hoop house, which was exciting. And honestly, this is the first time in I think 3 years that I've had to use the snow blower because it's been so dry over the winter. And I guess that's a quick story I can share too. Even though I've been growing food for better part of 2 decades now, and like seriously with the MEG for the last 7 years, I still kill plants. So a couple years ago, I started experimenting with perennial plants like strawberries, raspberries. I had 3 fruit trees. I think I had a couple of blueberry plants too, and hundreds of strawberry plants. So with the strawberry plants, I had them covered outside over winter like I had done in the previous year. But since it was so dry, I actually ended up killing just about all the strawberry plants, and I dang near killed the heritage raspberry plants. I think what saved the heritage raspberry plants is that they're in 7 gallon grow bags, so they had enough insulation to keep the roots from drying out. But the strawberry plants, they're in 1 gallon grow bags, so there's not a lot. And I was used to having that thick blanket of snow as insulation, and no snow over the winter here, and extreme colds. Extreme cold temperatures. It is a learning lesson. So this last year, I ended up taking all my perennial fruiting plants and I put them in my insulated shop. So that's where they're at right now, excluding this strawberry plant that I'm going to show you in a few minutes. And I was very happy that when I brought this strawberry plant out of hibernation here a couple of months, it woke up very quickly. So that's all it took, was just moving the plant to a new location. In this case, I have, I think, about 400 or 500, somewhere around the perennial fruiting plants in my insulated shop. It's not heated over the winter, but it does stay about 15 to 20 degrees warmer than ambient temperature. So when it goes below zero outside, it stays above zero in that shop, and it's enough for those perennials to apparently do fine. So here later this month, actually I should say, I plan on bringing some of the perennial fruits out of storage here this weekend since it's getting so warm. But next month, especially when I bring all the perennial fruits out of storage, I should have good results that I'm going to share with you guys too. Like I said, last couple years were a learning curve for me with the perennial fruits, but I'm very happy that with how the strawberry plants in particular and the raspberries have done over winter, and then the fact of bringing them out of hibernation and they've woken up nice. And then this June bearing plant that I'm looking at right now on the other side of the screen, it's got 2 massive strawberries on it right now. So I'll share that with you here momentarily. But once again, happy spring. And I'm gonna switch to my other camera, so you're gonna see the nursery. I have 5 seedling racks going right now. They're 128 cell racks. They're air pruned. Racks called wind strip trays from Never Seen Farm. I've given those guys a shout out a couple times. I've been using them for years now. I'm super impressed. The the material is so heavy duty that I expect to have these probably past my lifetime, and I'm very happy with the performance too. So they're not like the flimsy trays that you usually see at the big box stores. They're heavy duty, and at this point, I'm gonna flip it to my other camera so you can see what I'm talking about. And then I still need to water my plants, so you're gonna get to see me water my plants. So this tray closest to the camera right now, this is the first one seeded. So these are mostly edible flowers. I think you can see the roots. Look at those roots. That's what you want to see on seedlings that are at this stage, is nice bright white roots. They're all very healthy. So this this tray right here, there's gonna be a combination on here. So that first little cup was water, and then this is gonna be some nutrients or liquid fertilizer. I wait to start fertilizing until the seedlings get to about this stage where they're called the true leaves start to pop. Otherwise, if they still have their seedling leaves on them, they have enough food to last until the true leaves come out. So this tray right here has got cilantro, parsley, beets. This tray over here has leafy greens, lettuce, and I think I got some more beets in here too. And then this tray back here, these are still pretty young. They just germinated, so I took the saran wrap off the top so they could breathe. And then you can't see it, but I have a fan over to the side. It took me years to figure out that I should probably have a fan. I lost enough seedlings to where once I figured out, I added a fan, and then I stopped the loss, right? Hey, Shani. Have any of your peppers germinated yet? Oh, cold crops outside. Okay. Nice. Mocha swirl is up. That's fantastic. Alright, now I get to switch back to this. Alright. This is the fun of being a one-man show. I get to run the control board and the cameras and then talk at the same time. So that's a skill I'm still learning. But so I got 5 trays, mostly they're all cool season plants, some herbs, lots of edible flowers. The nasturtiums are my number one most popular plant that I grow, so I do a ton of nasturtiums. They're all also edible too, so if I can't eat it, I don't typically grow and sell it. Landrace pepper is up, sugar rush peach, anahai is up, pimento. Yeah, nice. It's great news when everything comes back to life. What Shani, what type of microgreens are you growing? I know there's a huge variation on those too. Or kind of like a bottomless well, like basil. So part of my college curriculum, I took a an herb or herb if you're in England, a spice and medicinal plant class, and my professor was he actually did research projects on basil, so we got to see some of his research. But he had over 40 varieties of basil, and I had no idea that there was that many basils. But that's my favorite part of growing from seed is it's basically a bottomless well. So if you haven't had the opportunity to grow from seed, or maybe you're just starting and you're growing from transplants, that's fine. But if you're buying transplants, you're really limited at what the varieties are that are in existence at the big box stores or the local nurseries. Once you cross the threshold from buying transplants into growing your own from seed, and then even saving your seed and taking the generations on after that, you cross into like this awesome world that is both thrilling and I would say it's like liberating because it that's almost like another level of freedom to where you're able to bring life back from these little seeds. I'm amazed that like some of these herbs, like I'm thinking spearmint or any type of mint plant, where the seeds are like so tiny, but it can produce so much. And it another plant that I'm thinking of is like radish plants. Radish seeds are very small, but if you haven't seen a radish plant go to seed, it'll have this huge, towering mass of flowers, and you'll have hundreds of seeds off of one little radish seed that started. It's an incredible experience. Spend $3 for a seed pack and have 25 plants or more. Oh yeah, yep, absolutely. Okay, so I just watered my plants. There's only two racks right now that I'm actually adding liquid fertilizer. It's a very weak concentration, and I'll show you what I use. It's not a trade secret or anything like that. But Fox Farm, I've been using this for years now. This is what I use. There's other brands out there too, but I will give credit where credit is due. Fox Farm and all their products, and this isn't the only one I use, but this is what I use when I'm starting the seedlings out, like you saw earlier when I was watering them. They have very good instructions on the back, so as long as you read and follow these instructions, you'll be fine. Uh, and I'll give you one other pro tip. I'm gonna get my other camera and show you what happened here a couple years ago. And this is just a learning lesson. I gotta flip this to my other camera. Okay. So this is the pro move. If you get to this point where you're growing seedlings and you need to start adding fertilizer, the pro move is label your buckets. I use 5 gallon water, uh, 5 gallon buckets, and then I had to label this. So I got fertilizer here, and then H2O with my signature beard. So what happened here? What happened here a couple years ago was an unfortunate mistake, and like I said, it's lesson learned. But I didn't have the buckets labeled, so what happened was I accidentally added the nutrient solution to a seedling rack that wasn't ready for fertilizer. And I didn't kill the plants off, but I could tell you they weren't happy for a week or two. And what it looked like was, if you haven't seen this yet with over fertilization, what it's going to look like, or what it looked like here, is the plants just kind of idled in place, and I'd add water, and they just didn't do anything. They were very sad looking, and it took probably a week or so to get the excess nutrients out of that tray. And I won't go into all the science of it, but is osmotic potential. And that was one of the questions I asked the professor when I was taking my plant nutrition class for my horticulture studies. Um, was I had always heard about fertilizer or nutrient burn or fertilizer burn. That professor was mostly involved with turf, so growing grass on like golf courses or home residential lawns, commercial lawns, whatnot. But it has to do with the osmotic potential. Um, and honestly, those seedlings weren't ready to accept any fertilizer anyway. So I'm basically, I'm basically giving it like coffee, and it's not even awake yet. um, so after that mistake, I ended up labeling my 5 gallon irrigation buckets. So now I made it foolproof for me, and that's my pro tip of the day. If you haven't seen this either yet, I want to show you something on these cabbage plants. Gotta flip this back. All right, we're back to this camera. We're gonna get a close-up look of. Oh. Okay, we're back. So if you've been growing for any period of time, you already know what we're looking at here. These are cabbage seedlings with the ladybug on them. But these have very distinctive seedling leaves. So these are the seed leaves. These are the true leaves right here. And what's going to be happening here pretty soon, which this is one of the coolest parts of nature, is that you can even see it like right here. How there's a little bit of discoloration. It's kind of pale looking. Here in another week or so, these little seedling leaves are right here, they're gonna get pale, and then they're gonna disappear. And the coolest part about this is that since now I'm adding nutrients to the watering solution, that plant's gonna recycle the seedling leaves. And that's how it works. And it's a very cool process. Kill this. There, we're back here. So that's one of my favorite parts to see at this stage of the seedlings, is to watch them germinate first, so they start to come up out of the seed tray soil. I'm saying soil, but it's really not soil, it's soilless. And that would be, as a side note, I would recommend too, if you're starting seeds, you've probably heard a lot of information about don't use garden soil, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. So your potting soil or seed starting mix, you'll see it marketed as seed starting mix. I get all my seed starting mix in large bags from a horticulture supplier or a wholesaler. I'm at the scale with my plant nursery to where it makes more sense for me economically to buy in bulk. So just to give you an idea, I haven't physically gone and shoveled compost in the back of my truck like I started 7 years ago. I haven't done that in years now. So when I order compost, I order 10 to 35 cubic yards of compost in a semi-truck load, and they dump it here, and then I go get my tractor, and then I scoop the compost. So I realized that if you're just starting out with growing for the first time, or you're new to it, welcome to the world of starting seeds. And there's a natural progression as you learn more, and then you kind of get to the next level, and then you learn more. You fail, like I have, and then you learn more, and then you develop a system, and then you get to the next level, and next level, and next level. So anyway, that's kind of a side ramble, but that's all to say that some of my favorite parts of this whole process still are watching the seedlings emerge and then watching how life starts and takes over. And then we honestly we don't have to do a whole lot with these plants as long as they get the fundamental stuff and it's not overly complicated. Um, but as long as we get the fundamental stuff right, plants are extremely resilient, and especially with our yo-yo weather here in Minnesota, I'm always impressed that they seem to be more resilient than I am when the weather goes sideways. And even with mid 70s this weekend, um, we probably gonna have more frost and freeze days here before May rolls around. And then even when May rolls around, I'm used to the point where we can go from frost or freeze warnings in May, or like around Mother's Day, to 90 degrees at the end of May, and that's crazy wild temperature swings, and that's kind of how the last couple of years have been. And I'm curious, Shawnee, have you had issues? I know you're in Minnesota too. Have you had issues with plants going sideways with wild temperature swings? Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. It's hard on the spring garden. So, um, bolting spring crops, yeah, yeah. So the my take on this is that I can't control the temperature, but I have learned over years of growing at this level, and it's not just my growing. If this is the first time you've seen Meg's Edible Landscapes, I I have lots of microclimates. So the way this business works is I set up gardens at my customers' places. So I'm actually growing at multiple locations, which has been awesome because for the last 3 years I've been able to exponentially increase my knowledge. It's not easy, and half the time I think I'm insane because I think there's a reason why other people don't do this. But I've learned a lot, especially in the local Minnesota Twin Cities region, of all these little microclimates. But the biggest thing that's been in common is just crazy temperature swings, humidity swings too. I might need your advice. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Absolutely. What I could say is that even if we have a very early warm up, and I just kind of expect it at this point, um, it's very stressful on the spring plants. The silver lining here is that when we get to the end of the year, so end of August into September, and definitely in October, we have a second chance to pick up the spring crops. So I'll give you a very good example of how I run MIGs. We have we have the spring plants right now. So the seedlings in the trays that you've seen already. I have the leafy greens, edible flowers, cabbage for sure. Cabbage is a spring plant. Broccoli is also in those seed racks right now. So those will get transplanted outside. They'll start growing. We're probably going to get really hot weather, and then they're going to want to finish their season. If we have a short spring season, that's okay because coming behind that is the summer crops. And I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, summer is really what we're growing a garden for because that's when you're getting all the fruiting plants like the strawberries, the tomatoes, the peppers. And I started this out with a salsa garden, and I've talked to many other gardeners, and that's how they've started too, is with the salsa garden. So when we get to the summer months where it's super hot, that's fine because that's what's going to be driving our growth for the peppers, tomatoes, the cucumbers, the melons, and each one of those types of plants. There's like a bottomless well on varieties too. Um, so that's awesome in itself. But when we get to the end of the summer months, it typically cools off, and if we have a early cool season in September, that's fantastic because if we start the cool season plants again at the appropriate time, and I'll give you my experience advice is start your fall cool season plants earlier than you think you need to. So on the seed packets, it's gonna typically you'll see maybe like peas. It'll give you a window. It'll say if you're in a warm season or a excuse me a warm climate or a cool climate. It'll it'll tell you when to start those seeds. But then there's also another window on that seed packet that tells you if you want to grow this in the fall. It'll say when to start those seeds. That's the date you need to pay attention to. And then I would recommend here in Minnesota to even start the like a week or two earlier than what the seed packet says. The reason why is because I tried doing peas here a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, on the tail end of the growing season. So I was trying to get peas to flower and fruit in September and then all the way up into October. And I missed that window because I started the pea seeds too late. So last year I was like spot on. Most of my customers' gardens got full, or they got over 75% of the pea plants flowered and fruited. So that's one example of a plant where you can grow in the spring. If the spring is cut short, you can catch it on the tail end. So that's the coolest part about the growing season is that on the spring plants is that you actually have a second opportunity to get those plants to grow into the fall. And if you can develop your skill set for extending your growing season, and this works on the head, so where we're at right now, if you can develop your skills for increasing the growing season on the front end of it, then you can lengthen the time for those plants. And it could be easy as, I'll show you right here, it can be easy as throwing a frost blanket on your spring plants to grow them into October. Here's another knowledge bomb or tip. If you haven't seen one of these, this is called a floating row cover. Now, I get questions all the times about these, and the most common one is doesn't it block the sunlight from the plants? It does, but it's not going to block so much that the plants won't be able to photosynthesize. So the cool thing about this is that these are used as frost blankets. I only buy one weight. This is Agribon A19. So if you go to Johnny Selected Seeds, that's who I buy this from, and I get it in 500-foot rolls at a time. But look for a floating row cover. If you go to any organic commercial farms or nurseries, you're going to see this out in their fields because not only is this used as a frost blanket, but it's also used as a mechanical barrier. And what's significant about that? The significance about that is that I don't have to use, or it dramatically cuts down on the need to spray any type of pesticides. I don't use pesticides as it is. I use a couple of products. Neem oil's one, and then insecticidal soap's the other one. And that sounds bad, but it's really just soap and oil. And that's a natural product too that's organically approved. So those are really the only two products I use besides the row cover. And most of the time, I don't even have to use any insecticidal soap because that row cover is doing 99% of the work I need it to do. As long as, as long as that row cover doesn't get blown off by the wind, or I have had problems where I had chipmunks that figured out how to get into the hoop house, and I was trying to figure out why my cherry tomatoes were getting shelled and the skins were laying on the floor, and I saw a chipmunk run to the hoop house, get underneath the row cover, pull a cherry tomato off, skin it, and then ate it. And then after that, I had to figure out a alternative plan for that. But yeah, row covers are fantastic for prevention or extending your season, and then keeping pests off. It's also camouflage, so I've used them at customer gardens where if they have known issues with rabbits. Do I grow ground cherries? I have. I didn't do them last year, but I did them 2 years ago, and I think I had them in 3-gallon grow bags. I like ground cherries. If you haven't grown ground cherries, that's a very cool plant, and the flavor's awesome. I think I saw that in a video here last week. Somebody had mentioned those. Aunt Molly, I think, is the variety that I grew. That seems to be a popular one. They volunteer well. Those, yeah, I could see that. Okay, so we went over fertilizer, went over row covers, went over lengthening the grow season, ancient food. Yeah, ancient food. I, I could tell you that's probably one of my favorite parts too of this whole process or this learning curve is just learning the history. So another class I took is a Native American agriculture class. This was through Oregon State University where I went through my horticulture program. And that Native American horticulture class, we talked about the ancestor to maize or corn or what we know as corn today. And I had no concept of where uh, corn came from or maize, and it came from the wild ancestor in Central South America called Teosinte. And I remember that name, and it's forever gonna be stuck in my head because we talked about Teosinte probably 1,000 times in that class, and it was fascinating to learn the history about how that was domesticated over centuries of human existence, and how it resulted into the corn that we see today. And I have a cookbook, How to Eat from the Land. Yeah, I gotta get that book. Do you happen to know the title of that book? Awesome. Yeah, I that's one of my favorite parts too is just not learning the history but building my library too. I think honestly anybody that's getting seriously into gardening and growing their own food, they're probably doing the same thing we're doing is developing an extensive library. There's just like a wealth of knowledge out there, and it's fun exploring it, and it's fun learning the history of where these uh, food varieties came from. Not only that, but I've been doing this long enough now to where it's painfully obvious that the general public, and this is just where we're at, the sous chef's indigenous kitchen. Awesome, thank you. That book's probably coming to my library soon. Thank you. Uh, I always love finding a new book that I haven't heard about. Anyway, uh, I've been doing this long enough to where it's painfully obvious that the general public has no idea where our food comes from. So I had an experience last year. Mankato is a wonderful place to buy. Nice. I had an experience last year to see one of my gardens being used for therapy, and it was the first time I had seen this. But a therapist was with a elementary age child, and to watch this child pull a carrot out of one of my grow bags, and the look, the expression on his face, and the joy it brought was, well, it did a lot of things. One, it really resonated with me. It reinforced why I do what I do. It opened up a whole new world for MEG of that not only can I grow gardens for people, but I can also grow therapeutic gardens because this particular garden was being used for occupational therapy. And a couple years ago, I didn't even know what an occupational therapist was, and I definitely know what an occupational therapist is now. And I've been fine tuning how we can use edible plants for therapeutic uses. Uh, but just to reinforce the point of the general public just painfully unaware of where food comes from. I when I was selling at the farmers markets, I would I would love just in passing conversation, something as simple as like popcorn. maize. It's a variety of corn, but popcorn. Uh, I would say ask others your social network if they know where popcorn comes from, because I'd be willing to bet they have no idea that it actually comes from a maize plant or a corn plant, and that's just one example. A lot of people have never seen broccoli or the plant that it comes from, let alone that the fact that the whole broccoli plant is edible. So if you didn't know about this, the leaves of a broccoli plant are also edible. You can totally, and I do this frequently, is I'll rip the leaves off after I've harvested the main floret, and then I'll throw the leaves into stir fries, typically stir fries or salads, just for extra texture. Love buying local popcorn. Where do you find local popcorn? I'm growing popcorn this year, but I'm kind of curious to know if there is any local popcorn in. I'm assuming you're talking Minnesota. Farm Direct. Oh yeah, yeah. Thank you. Yes, Farm Direct Minnesota. That's an exciting story too, because that Farm Direct Minnesota came to life the same time that MEG's Edible Landscapes came to life. So I started MEG in 2020, right after the toilet paper crisis. And that's about the time that Farm Direct Minnesota started up. And the whole idea behind that was to connect the local farms uh, to consumers or people that could use those products. And most of it was, the driving force was because we were isolated at the time. I tried to get into a couple of farmers markets at the time. Cedar Crate. Awesome, thank you. Hmm. I tried to get into a couple of farmers markets in 2020, um, but due to various, is mostly the social distancing that requirement. There are some other requirements too for the farmers markets, but I wasn't able to get into the farmers markets that I wanted because they didn't even open up. So, and I don't uh, disagree with those decisions by the governing boards, because some of them, like the Northfield Riverwalk Market, it's a very tight location. So, I mean, that location in particular, it's hard to space out. But anyway, that Farm Direct Minnesota, that was born the same time that MEG came to life. So it's been exciting to see how that's grown up. And I appreciate you reminding that, because that's one of those organizations that I haven't seen in a while. I try to stay off of Facebook. But that's a great resource for Minnesota here. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so that's kind of a wrap on what I got in the nursery. Uh, it's gonna be very warm and sunny today, so I've heard this before. Make hay when the sun's shining. So I'm not gonna be making hay today, but I am definitely gonna be working outside with potting soil, and then sterilizing seedling trays. So you're gonna see my method for that. Uh, and that's one of my tips too, is that I'm super, I don't know if I'd say paranoid, but I'm super cognizant of cleanliness and making sure that I'm not putting seedlings in a compromised position by having a dirty seed tray or having dirty soil around it. So, but before I let you go, I'm gonna grab my other phone, because I'm gonna give you the update on my strawberry plant that's right behind us. Actually, I think I could just do this. So this was an experiment a couple of years, or a couple years ago. I told you the horror story of how I lost a bunch of strawberry plants, but since I moved the plants into a insulated shop, I'm able to do stuff like this now. So this is called it's All Star is the variety. It's a June bearing plant, and where were we? The second day of spring, and I already got a massive strawberry there, and that one's not the biggest one. This is the big guy right here. That's the first strawberry right there. So if you ever wondered about if you can grow strawberries inside, these have been inside in my basement. That's where I'm at right now. So it's totally possible to grow fruiting plants inside in Minnesota during the winter. Like I say, you just have to take care of the basics. So that one gets water and some nutrients. Oh yeah, do you want to see the leaves again? Somebody told me yesterday I was out in a sales call and they're like, "Those leaves look like they're fake." I'm like, "No, they're not fake. You can touch them." But yeah, so that's called All Star. I've been very impressed with that plant, and I haven't brought any raspberry plants in there. But at some point in time, I want to experiment with the dwarf raspberry plants to see if I can get those running too. But anyway, that's an update on the nursery. And like I said, I'm gonna be outside doing a bunch of nursery work, so I'll flip on the camera. You can follow along. If not, I always keep the videos public, so you can come back and watch them later. But anyway, thanks for joining me today, and look forward to growing with you later this year.